Good evening. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. Before we get started, I will ask everybody to stand, or if you're on the screen, you won't be able to see. We're going to say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up on the agenda is a city council proclamation, and I will hand it over to our council chair for said proclamation.
All right, I believe we're going to put a list of names up on the screen, and this is going to be all of the residents of the city who worked at the polls for election day. City departments and election workers for their outstanding performance in managing, staffing, and operation of the November 3rd, 2020 general and municipal elections. Whereas open and free elections are at the heart of the American democratic system, and whereas for our democracy to be successful, elections must be managed and staffed in a manner that promotes participation through efficient voter registration.
Sorry.
Where was I? I'll just start over. Whereas open and free elections are at the heart of the American democratic system, and whereas for our democracy to be successful, elections must be managed and staffed in a manner that promotes participation through efficient voter registration, convenient voting opportunities, and a well-designed and operated system that ensures a safe and efficient voting experience. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has created additional staffing challenges and logistic concerns regarding gathering limits, social distancing guidelines, and face covering requirements. And whereas the citizens of Waterville were well informed on how to register to vote and about available options for casting ballots by absentee or in person on election day. And whereas the successful operation of this most important civic function would not have been possible without the hard work and commitment of the staff of the city clerk's office, along with all of the other city employees who helped with the various election duties and tasks. And whereas many election workers come forward to offer their services to assist on election day and in the months leading up to election day, while putting themselves at possible risk. Now, therefore, I, Eric Thomas, Chair of the City Council, on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Waterville, do hereby recognize and thank the city staff, including the election workers whose names you saw on the screen there, who devoted their time and abilities to ensure that the November 3rd, 2020 election allowed the citizens of Waterville to conveniently exercise their right to vote in a safe and efficient manner. And I just want to thank Patty again and everyone in her office and all of these people for all the hard work they put in. I believe the election honestly could not have run smoother in Waterville, and I think we can be proud of all the people who were involved.
Thank you.
That's the silent clap. All right. Next is the disclosure of conflict of interest. Are there any councilors who feel they have a conflict of interest with any of the votes they will take tonight? Seeing as none, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Could I get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? I will ask for a roll call, please.
Councilor Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Here.
Councilor Green?
Hey,
I can't call on Councilor Green yet. My apologies. Councilor Foss?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next, we're moving on to unfinished business order 222-2020.
I have a couple of motions. One, I would like to make a motion to take the agenda out of order and move resolution 253-2020 to the beginning of the agenda.
So moved. Seconded.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We'll ask for a roll call, please.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
I would also like to make a motion to take all of the items on the agenda by title only.
Seconded.
Is there any discussion? I will take a roll call, please.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed. Shall I read Resolution 253?
Resolution 253, 2020.
A resolution providing for appointing Rebecca Green to the City Council for Ward 4.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And any discussion? Take a roll call, please.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Counselor Green, welcome to the bunch.
I can administer the oath if you'd like.
Yeah, please do.
Ms. Green, could you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me? I, Rebecca Green.
I, Rebecca Green.
Is your right hand raised?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I, Rebecca Green,
I, Rebecca Green,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge,
that I will faithfully discharge,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
the duties incumbent upon me
the duties incumbent upon me
as a city councilor
as a city councilor
for the city of Waterville.
in the city of Waterville.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay. Now, now we will move on to Order 222-2020.
An order providing for approval of lease for the Alphon Youth and Community Center.
I'm gonna move that we table this, given that we haven't cleared the hurdle of the planning board's recommendation.
And if
We
you
want
could
to postpone this, right, till December 5th?
postpone
next
to
regular meeting.
December 15th, if you would, please.
The 15th, Mike?
Yes, I believe we'll be set by the 15th of December,
Okay,
obviously.
thank you.
So I
Second.
Do we need a roll call on that, Patty?
Yes. Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green.
We can't hear you.
Counselor
gotta
Green,
unmute.
you are muted. I'm sorry.
Right, sorry, yes.
Okay. Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Ordinance 246-2020.
An ordinance providing for amendment to streets and sidewalks ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And discussion. Seen as Counselor Thomas.
I had Public Works send me a list of streets where they've had issues with, people getting in the way when they're plowing. And I actually went out and drove around those streets late at night just to see what the scope of the problem was. I was really surprised there weren't nearly as many people as I would have thought parked in the street. Most of them had it's hard to tell where people live, but in most cases it seemed like people had a clear alternative. So I feel a lot better moving forward with this. I would remind people that this was in effect up until 3 years ago anyway. Half the people I talk to still think it's the law of the land anyway. And so I think we move forward with this change in the ordinance. And then I think we just be aware as we go through this winter, if there are issues that come up around this that we have to address, then we can revisit it. But at this point, I don't think there's any reason to make Public Works jump through a bunch of hoops. So I'm fine with moving forward with the changes as presented.
Counselor Klepak.
I I would agree with Councilor Thomas, but I do feel that this is not going to be a permanent solution, that there will eventually be some pushback. I mean, we changed 3 years ago for a reason, and I think that we should keep that in mind and look to the future here, the intervening year between now and next winter, as an opportunity to find a solution that is certainly going to be workable for public works, but also puts the least amount of burden on the population. I have myself looked into how a number of other cities deal with this problem, and there are some strategies that we can come up with that may be fruitfully implemented. One of the things that I'm interested in doing is hearing from Chief Massey whether it would be possible to find out what the ticketing history was, and as a way to find out what the hot zones in the city are. Where does the problem, where is it most pernicious? And perhaps we can come up with a more targeted ban in the future, in conjunction with potentially other strategies that we could implement. We had talked about, we just sunk all this money into the LEDs here in town. Maybe using that technology to have like maybe a change in the color or a change in the intensity, or an oscillation or something in that light, paired with Councilor Thomas's great idea about the, issuing maps of ancillary parking during the warning phase. I think that is something that should be implemented as soon as possible this year, so that we can try to make it the burden as shoulderable for the citizens as possible.
Anybody else? Is there any commentary from the public on this topic? I'll assume that's it. Yes, Councilor Green.
I just wanted to ask about if there's any plan for working with people who don't have an alternative to parking on the street. What would be the plan for that? There were some ideas, I think, that came up last time for alternate parking, particularly in the south end. I don't know if that will be a problem, but.
Yep, right. So I'll speak to that. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone's input. I especially appreciate Councilor Thomas's taking the initiative. We met with Eric last week, had a good meeting. But anyways, Councilor Green, we did identify 2 areas down in the south end. The south end boat landing and Kuchar Ball Field. We had an engineer measure things up, and there appears to be about between 55 and 60 spaces there. So we are going to make those available, and we'll put that on the notice that Chief Massey is going to help, issue on, in the targeted areas where there are a lot of, people parking on the street year round. So, it's something we're going to try. I think it'll work well. We'll want folks to park, in a perimeter around Kuchar Field, and while it's not right in the densest areas of the south end, it's a great little ancillary area where people can be shuttled back and forth that's close to that dense area in the south end. And just like Councilor Klepak said, we're open to, kind of investigating more options where it's not so blanket. But in my experience, I think this is best for us now. I'm sure this is best for us now because, let's face it, it's the middle of November. And we just want to be professional, we want to be efficient, and we want to be safe. So I think I'm hopeful moving forward that we can come up with maybe a compromise, but this will be helpful this year. Thank you.
Thanks.
Flavia?
I had a question. So with the parking committee, they had a question of designated area on the concourse can be utilized for overnight parking for the students. So I wasn't sure if this could be added on to this or be brought up for discussion.
I don't know, is that question aimed at myself? Because I'm not that familiar with, I don't know if Chief Massey is on here somewhere. He might be better to speak to the parking issues in the concourse. He's much more familiar with kind of the historical there with Colby and whatnot.
He's here.
Okay.
There was some discussing at the parking meeting about.
Chief, it goes up. Push it.
Microphone.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. There was some discussion at the parking committee meeting last week about overnight parking in the south end of the concourse. And, I mean, this particular ordinance now will allow for that, except when it's snowing. So, I think that we took that into consideration, and you'll also be able to park at the head of falls, also. So there'll be both parking in the concourse, and there'll be parking at the head of falls between midnight and 6 a.m., long as they're not moving snow or plowing snow.
Mike Roy has something he'd like to add.
In my time here, I think this is probably the third time we've talked about allowing cars to park overnight in the concourse, even when it's snowing. It's a terribly poor idea and would cause huge problems cleaning out that section. Once the snow stopped and we were done everything else in the city, to come back to that section of the concourse that was full of snow and packed with cars, it would be almost impossible for us to clean it properly. We'd have to wait for people to move their cars. Some of them would be snowed in. They'd have to shovel themselves out. This would be in the section of the concourse near Silver Street in that area, and it would be a big mess.
Thank you.
And anybody else before we move to a vote? Is there any public that would like to speak to this? Nope. All right, Patty, I think we're ready for a roll call, please.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on, we have Order 247, 2020.
An order providing for sale of city property 70 Violet Avenue.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Order 248, 2020.
An order providing for sale of city property 3 Abbott Street.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green? Council Green?
Yeah.
Thank you. Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
I just want to remind the council that, and Mrs. Cody is here, our tax collector. She's coordinating the closing for the sale of Violet Avenue and 3 Abbott Street tomorrow. So those funds totaling, I think, $110,000 will be deposited in the Capital Improvement Reserve Fund. And I want to make sure Linda gets recognized for her work in coordinating the auction on these properties, closing tomorrow, and we move forward now that they'll be taxable for next year.
Thank you, Linda.
And a good price was fetched.
And a good price.
Yeah. Surprise. That's great.
Good.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Linda.
We're also collecting the amounts that are due for the water and the sewer, so both of those entities are not losing out. on this also, so.
Great. Next is Order 249, 2020.
An order providing for sale of lot in Airport Road subdivision.
I'm going to move to table this as well. Mike, do we have a sense of till when?
I'm hoping that for December 1st, so if you could include that in your motion, please, Councilor Foss.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Olivera,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yes.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to new business, Resolution 252, 2020.
A resolution providing for canvassing of votes and determination of the result of the regular municipal election held on November 3, 2020.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Was that a second, Eric?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't quite hear. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Olivera,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yes.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Resolution 254, 2020.
A resolution providing for purchase of equipment for a police firearm training range.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Councilor Foss.
Chief's in the room with you, I assume?
Yep.
Chief, I took a ride down into the new range, looking great down there. Just wanted to give you a kudos on that. Looks really nice down in there so far.
Thank you. It should be completed, I'm hoping, in the next week or so. We're very excited about that.
Yep.
We invited for an open house?
You are.
All right.
Nick.
Councilor Klepak?
What equipment is being purchased? What do you need down there?
These are what they call HESCO barriers, Counselor, and they're gonna be used to separate the lanes. Instead of using a dirt berm where you need so much, take so much room away from the range, these HESCO barriers. Did everyone get the picture that I sent of what the HESCO barriers look like? They're a mesh wire basket, for no better term, and they fill them with dirt, and we're able to stand them straight up, and they act as a barrier that separates the lanes.
Thank you. That was my fault. Yeah, I see that now. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Anybody from the public? Seeing as none, we'll take a roll call, please.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Olivera,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yeah.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Resolution 255, 2020.
A resolution providing for appointing Rod Labby to the Planning Board.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And discussion. Okay. Roll call, please.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Olivera,
No.
Councilor Klepak,
No.
Councilor Green,
No.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
No.
The vote is 4 in favor, 2 in favor and 4 opposed.
And I would just add a ending comment here that I find it unfortunate that because one counselor had hurt feelings from letters to the editor from 10 years ago, that they would take someone who's qualified to do the job and vote no, and I didn't hear any objections during the discussion. This is certainly a first that I can recall in not only all my time, but the time before me, and I think you're sending a pretty bad message to good people who step forward to apply for these things. But while I have the opportunity to address the public, we will be taking applications. Patty, will we be advertising for those soon?
Yes, actually.
Because we have all openings for upcoming appointments will be done in December. And Patty and I, typically the process is we will have those folks apply for those open positions. They'll come in, we'll interview and put together a slate of candidates. And so I guess I'm just putting the word out there now for people to pay attention to that.
Okay.
Yep. And moving on, we have Resolution 256, 2020.
A resolution providing for referral to the planning board.
Oh, wait.
Second.
And discussion. Any discussion from the public on this one? Nope. I will ask for a roll call, please.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yeah.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Resolution 257, 2020.
A resolution providing for airport hangar lease.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Public? Councilor Green.
I was just wondering, is this lease a standard agreement with a standard cost for the hangar?
Yes, the city has a policy with,
Okay.
that explains what the standard costs are for the land leases at the airports. Everyone pays the same amount. It does increase over time. And as a matter of fact, on this one, I would ask you too, if it's approved, to amend it to say Lot 6 and not Lot 15. So sometimes so what happens at the airport is we own the land and we lease the land to people who build hangars. So they own the hangar, we own the land it sits on, so we collect a rent amount for that land. And there is that set policy where the price per acre, or actually I think it's per square foot, because really the hangar lot's a very, very small land area-wise. So, yes, there is something in place that describes that rate.
Great, thank you.
So do we need to make a motion to amend it to a different lot?
I guess we need a motion to amend.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
To change it from 15 to 6. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and I guess I will take, is there discussion on the motion, or can I go right to the roll call on the amendment? We'll roll call the amendment.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
A motion to move the resolution as amended.
Second.
And roll call as amended.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Order 259, 2020.
258, actually.
258, 2020.
Ordinance 258. An ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Eric?
This went in front of the planning board, right? I assume they recommended to make this change.
Hang on, Patty's in discussion. Mike, do you know?
This is the
West
the
River.
amendment to the zoning, not
Yeah.
the referral.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, got mixed up with that. Yes, you're correct. It has come back from the planning board with a recommendation for approval. Right.
Do you know what that vote was by any chance, Mike?
Sorry, Eric, I can't quite hear you.
Do you know what the vote, how many voted yes, how many voted no?
Do you know what the vote of the planning board was?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know the tally of the vote.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
No.
Counselor Foss?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
No.
4 in favor and 2 opposed.
Now it's order 259, 2020.
An order providing for acceptance of a FEMA reimbursement.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Go ahead.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Foss?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Resolution 260, 2020.
A resolution providing for hiring a consultant to advise the city on solar energy issues.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
This was a item we talked about when Bill Lee was with the council in executive session 2 meetings ago in this room. In the discussion with Synergy about their lease for their solar facility at the airport, it became clear that the question about the city's purchase of electricity in the future is a pretty complicated matter. And after Bill and I, and we also had Paul Castangua, our assessor, help listen in on a number of different conversations about electricity rates going forward, net energy billing credits, and how all of that works, we realized that we needed some help. And so the firm that we're recommending tonight is the one that worked with the school department last year, and I think secured a very favorable contract with them. This became a little bit more of a pressing matter because it looks like with the program so popular statewide as a result of the state legislation passed last year, that it may have to be limited, and we may get, we may not be able to participate in some parts of it if we don't act fairly quickly. So that's why I decided to move this to the agenda tonight. I was thinking that, well, maybe it would be better to wait for a new city manager to be here, but with the fact that the program may be somewhat terminated next year, I think it's important for us to try to get our foot in the door at this time. So that's it in a nutshell. I did invite Charlie Agnew in to listen tonight and answer any of your questions. He's the one that's representing the consultant company, CES, and Charlie's here to answer questions, so I'll leave it at that.
Councilor Foss?
Mike, like we had talked about last time we were talking about this, and Charlie, thank you for coming. My thing on solar panels is what type of panels the constructor uses, rather cadmium or monocrystalline. So that's going to be one of those important questions I'm going to have for any time we're looking at any interaction with said solar company down the road. Just want to put that out there. That way you can be mindful of it down the road.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Mike, just to be clear, the amount of this that we're appropriating tonight is $5,000, and this is coming from a reserved solar account that has a balance of $12,000. Is that correct?
Right. The city, when it first did a lease with the landfill site with HEP Energy, we set a lease rate at that time 3 years ago, 4 years ago maybe, and we've been collecting lease rent on that landfill property. As you know, they haven't moved forward with any project there yet, but we're still collecting rent. So over that time, Mike, it's built up to about that sum, $12,000.
Okay.
And
So,
Thank you. That was my next question. I always wondered where the $12,000 originated
Right.
from. So I appreciate that.
And Charlie's here. I want to just have him explain quickly, if he can, that price in the contract of $5,000 is variable. And Charlie, can you just quickly explain how that amount may change?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yeah.
Thanks for having me. And no, the $5,000 that we have proposed is not variable. We've offered essentially a fixed consulting fee to advise the city on matters of these opportunities relating to the net energy billing program and associated bill credit. That could be a very favorable opportunity for you folks, given a fairly swift action here. The variable portion of our fee is really only tied to the back end of the project. We have structured a support services where we would help the city into one or multiple agreements with these solar projects that are qualified under the energy billing legislation. And then as an ongoing service, we would ensure that the agreement performed as expected by auditing and reporting on these bill credits back to the city, again, to make sure that the agreement performed. And what we've proposed is to give back essentially half of our fixed fee if in fact you do enter one of the agreements, net energy billing credit agreements with a solar project. And at that point, we would transition to a revenue share fee structure where we take 10% of the net benefit that the city would realize. So our fee becomes, at risk with as much savings as you realize. And the idea here is that, we have then a common goal of getting you into the best project with the best savings opportunity available, and essentially limit your out-of-pocket expenses here to the $5,000, half of which we would credit back if you do decide to move forward.
Thank you. I guess I got confused, Charlie, with the revenue sharing then piece of it later on. in terms of it being variable?
Yeah, the variable piece is just associated with the amount of savings you realize. So the more savings, the higher the fee, less savings, the lesser the fee.
Is there anybody else?
So, just to recap, our commitment is $5,000 or more based on the 10% revenue sharing should we enter an agreement. Correct?
That is correct. Again, half of the 2,500 of the 5,000 could be credited back if you enter a net energy billing credit agreement with a solar project. And at that point, our fee would be tied to your savings. So if you had you know, $50,000 or $100,000 worth of savings, our fee would be $5,000 to $10,000 per year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any way, is this guaranteed the city's going to save money through this, or is it possible we end up not saving money, is one question. And I'm not an expert certainly on the energy billing side of things. Is this something that is subsidized by any other kind of ratepayer, or is it strictly from savings based on the solar project itself?
Yeah, very good question. There are two questions. The first is that there is no guarantee on savings. The likelihood that this type of agreement could go upside down, in other words, you would be paying more than had you done nothing, is very low in our opinion. And that situation could only arise where electricity prices declined and declined fairly dramatically. And I'll say, let's assume that your retail electricity prices, the city's electricity costs, decline more than 40%. In that situation, the city could essentially break even on this type of agreement. Now, you may look at that and say, well, that's that presents some risk. But the reality is that you are still a customer of the utility, and you still have utility costs, whether or not you enter into this agreement. And if your costs go down by 40%, that is in essence the worst case scenario, the break-even scenario in the net energy billing agreement. And so we see that as a very low or mute risk in this type of agreement. And further, by entering this agreement, you will still have ownership of the environmental attributes, which may in future years be treated with some value as the pressure on carbon reduction and carbon emissions becomes, or comes more close to your objective. So hopefully that answers your first question. The risk of this going upside down is very low. Do you have any follow-up questions to that?
Yeah, so with the billing, is there any the savings, am I correct that it comes simply from the idea that solar is cheaper, it's not being subsidized by other ratepayers?
Yeah. So yeah, your second question is it's also a good one. The way this legislation was structured does place a higher value on the actual energy that'll be produced from these arrays than the market actually bears. And so this will be a very expensive program for the utilities to administer. They are obligated to do it under current law, but it will be an expensive program for Central Maine Power to administer. There was a Public Utilities Commission report last Tuesday that was released that estimated, approximately a 21% increase in your delivery rates, Central Maine Power customer delivery rates, as a result of the added costs of this program. And whether Waterville participates or not in the program, your rates are expected to go up by, according to the Public Utilities Commission, 21% per year. And the opportunity that Waterville has to participate is to, in a way, avoid or offset those costs through the savings by participating in the program rather than not. But the short answer to your question is that the utility will recover the program costs through their rate base, and that will lead to an increase in costs in your and everyone across the state's delivery rates.
Councilor Klepek, yes.
But the macroeconomics of this are also going to drive the cost of electricity down, presumably not the 40% that would be at the tipping point, but this 21% rate increase would be offset by downward pressure on the overall cost of electricity in the state. Is that correct or incorrect? Because you're increasing supply, right? Or do I not understand?
No, that's a fair point. I mean, marginally, yes. The scale of this program is really not adding so much energy onto the grid that we think that'll offset that amount of costs. But incrementally or to some extent, the answer is yes. You are in a way subsidizing electricity delivered to the grid at near zero cost. I mean, there's ultimately no value to the solar actual electricity that's generated. It's really to the benefit of the participants. The value is driven by the bill credits and also the environmental attributes that are associated with the projects. But that is a fair point in work to some extent.
I have a couple more questions. So the answer is yes. Like the average ratepayer in Waterville is going to see an increase in their bill based on this program. Is it strictly, is that cost strictly going to be covered by the rate increase to the ratepayers, or are there also any taxpayer funded subsidies behind this program, or is it simply the increased cost to the ratepayers that are going to push this program?
For this program, it's the ratepayers only.
And to be clear, that's regardless of our participation or not.
I hear you, but I also think that there's a moral line here where we live in a state where electricity is already outrageously overpriced. I've lived here my whole life, and I've watched us rip out one hydro dam after another, and the cost of electricity has gone up and up and up. And you know, the average person in Waterville is going to be paying more because of a program that's essentially has an agenda behind it to force a direction that clearly doesn't have the economics behind it. So it's the state and the politicians coming in and saying, you, the everyday ratepayer, you're going to pay more to subsidize this program for, you know, some big entity that can afford it. I think it's wrong. I don't like it at all.
Well, from my understanding, that's the definition of a transitional energy policy, right? I mean, isn't that the idea behind this?
Hey, Mike Roy.
Question for Charlie. With the two projects that are being built at the airport, one by HEP Energy and the other by Synergy, aren't both of those projects going to offer residential ratepayers an opportunity to keep their electricity costs low by becoming subscribers to either of those 5 megawatt projects?
I don't represent what's going on with either of those projects, but I would say that, you know, to the prior point, that those that participate in the program will avoid or offset some of the costs of their electricity.
Okay. My other question for you, Charlie, was about the timing or the possible termination of the state's program early in 2021. Do you have any feel for when that might be?
No, I would just be speculating. I think if anyone chooses to read the Public Utilities Commission report that went out last Tuesday, you know, the overall across the state of Maine, they are expecting or reported an expected cost of this program on an annual basis to exceed $160 million. And what's ultimately going to happen is, you know, the legislature is going to be forced to take action. And I'm sorry, I don't know, maybe one of the former counselors that was speaking, you know, to that point where this is going to be generally unacceptable to the majority of Mainers in terms of cost. You know, the legislature is going to reconvene in December, we know. I doubt that they'll take action on this, but by then, but they're obligated to take some action on the program. Presumably that's going to happen in the early part of the year. And ultimately, yeah, it's you know, I think the place, if you are to oppose this type of legislation, is in Augusta. You know, from a city perspective, you should, in our, or in kind of a logical position, you should take advantage of the program while it's available, rather than sit on the sideline and bear the cost of it. So, you know, those are some things just to think about.
We have a member of the public who I believe is here to speak to this issue.
I have a couple questions for the.
Could you just state your name for the record? And you can take that off while you're speaking to the mic.
Tom Dupre. I have a question for the solar consultant. What do you perceive as the upside range of your in your fee structure? You have theoretically it's an unlimited upside. So what do you perceive as the range that you could of that percentage of the benefits that the city will obtain?
Yeah, that's a good question and fair. Thank you for that. I think conservatively, we'd estimate the value to the city around $40, or I should say the savings to the city around $40 per megawatt hour of your participation in the program. We have not been hired or dove into the how significantly the city could participate here. I'd speculate to say, you know, how far you'd want to go into this program, whether it's, you know, 25 or 100%. But on a dollar per megawatt hour basis, we think that the value to the city is about $40 per megawatt hour participation.
Which would equate to how much?
theoretically-
How much is the overall fee? If it's $40 per megawatt hour, how much are you obtaining?
Yep, 10% of that.
Right. but
So $4 per megawatt hour. So
Right.
again, in theory, at 25% of, I maybe ask Mike Roy, please, to comment on your city's electricity load, but
How
if
many
it was
megawatt hours,
1,000
Mike, are you
megawatt
actually looking
hours,
to?
that could be, $40,000 in savings per year for the city, and $4,000 per year for competitive energy services.
And how long is the term of the agreement then? How long do you take that 10%, for how many years?
Typically 20 years.
Whoa. That's pretty steep. How about putting a cap on that?
A cap on the fee?
Yeah. You're talking about 20 years at roughly $4,000, you're talking about an upside of $80,000, right?
Yeah, maybe important. Yes, you're right. And there is maybe I should clarify what we would be doing over the course of the 20 years. This is not simply a single transaction. What we've proposed is to audit the flow of utility credits and ultimately payments going back to the project. And this explanation is going to get into a little bit of the mechanics of the project, or the program, I should say. But let's just assume the city enters an agreement with one solar project, and those 1,000 megawatt hours of production are directed to 50, let's say, of your central main power accounts. Over the course of the 20 years, we are going to track the production of the solar facility, those 1,000 megawatt hours that the city agrees to purchase, make sure that the net energy billing credits flow to each of the 50 central main power accounts in the correct volume and the correct quantity, correct rate each month, and ultimately report that back to the city and verify that the solar project owner payments, or invoices I should say, to pay the project reflect both the credits that were received on your central main power invoices and reflect the generation from the solar facility. So this isn't just a single transaction. We have an ongoing involvement to make sure that the utility issues the appropriate credit, you receive that credit, and then to make sure that the payment is appropriate going back to the developer.
Suppose the savings is $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 a year. Why don't you put a cap on it of $4,000 or something less than that?
Mike?
What I just want to remind everyone is that the item before the council tonight is about the consultation contract. It's not about the revenue sharing part of it. The revenue sharing happens if we decide to enter into another contract to purchase power with a supplier. So the item before us tonight is to employ his consulting services to help us decide where to buy power. Then if we decide we're going to buy power somewhere, I believe it would come back here to the council, and we'd say we, as a result of having advice from a consultant, have decided to buy power from XYZ source, and now, as part of that, there'll be a revenue sharing piece. And that's when the debate about what the fee should be, 10% or whatever, should happen. I think tonight it's more on the consultation part of it.
But are you limited then? I mean, are you forced to enter into the second part of the contract? Is it a two-part contract, or is it getting?
I was just reading it as you were talking to make sure, and you know, I asked Mr. Agnew, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says that if the client, city, enters into one or more agreements regarding purchase of power, then the following fees apply if the client enters into. And so is that your understanding, Charlie, if the contract was signed, the revenue sharing piece is a separate piece?
But Mike, if it makes economic sense to purchase those contracts, basically power purchase contracts, then are you forced to take that revenue sharing agreement that the consultant is proposing?
I'll ask for his help on that question.
Yeah, those two are intentionally tied together so that, again,
Okay.
the result
All right.
of the outcome of our negotiation is steered towards maximizing the value and benefit for the city and also our firm.
Wow.
But we don't have to enter into an agreement to buy power from somewhere if we don't want to.
That's correct.
But if you do, then you're locked into this revenue sharing agreement.
It sounds that way.
You might want to consider putting a cap on the amount that he's going to get. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Any other counselors who have any questions before we go to a roll call on this? All right, Patty, I'll take a roll call. Oh, I see Counselor Green. No, hang on, I see Counselor Green.
If I understand correctly, Charlie has also counseled the school district on similar projects. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. And so, is there any information that can be shared about savings that have accrued to the school district, school board so far? I don't know if that's, you know, if you're at liberty to disclose that, but it would just be an interesting point of information to have.
Yeah, no, a very good question. And maybe something to point out here about these solar projects in general is that none of them, as you folks are probably aware, are constructed today. All of these are large-scale construction projects that require, you know, buyers like the city of Waterville to sign agreements before, you know, these $10 million projects can be financed and constructed. The construction process, you know, can take, for those that are, you know, have low, low impedance to construction, they could take as little as 12 months. The majority of them are likely going to take, you know, 24 months or more to construct. This is all taking place in a time when, you know, we have an unprecedented amount of solar that will be built starting in next construction season, 2021. And, you know, your project that you may subscribe to is among, you know, 40 to 100 others that are all trying to get built as quickly as possible, competing for the same resources and interconnection with the utility. So the reality is the school department, what they did and what we did with them amongst a collection of other similar buyers was to ultimately diversify the commitment made, and they signed actually 24 different solar project agreements. So they've spread their load per se across that many projects. None of them are constructed, the earliest of which could be constructed next year, and credits would be flowing presumably in their FY22 budget. There were 7 very small qualified hydro facilities in addition to the solar that the school district contracted with. Those were all existing, and those have produced a very marginal amount of credits to the school district. Unfortunately, the summer, and this summer in particular, was really not a good year for solar, or excuse me, for hydro, for obvious reasons. It was very dry August and September. And so, you know, the savings that have accrued for the school's share of these projects was, you know, in the order of a few $100s. I mean, it's very small, but yeah, it would be really the same economic or financial picture for the city that we would envision, and that would not, you know, likely occur or start to hit your you know, financial statements or your operating expenses until at least FY22 or later.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Klepek.
Hi, Charlie. Speaking to the mayor's concern, how long is it projected that the 21% ratepayer funded subsidy would persist? How long is it anticipated that will be the case?
I don't know the answer to that. I presumably it's the term of the legislation, which is 20 years. The cost, you know, was really, I think, that calculation, I should say, was really a simple estimate based on, you know, the total cost to implement the program divided by the amount of annual revenue that they receive through the ratepayers. So the 21% is, you know, as it would be today, and that's obviously going to change into the future. It's going to be a different percentage of the total increase into the future, but that's relative to today's cost.
So presuming that usage increases or population grows in the state of Maine, that is going to go down.
Exactly, yeah. So if there's a greater amount of electricity consumed, yes, that is correct. Yep.
I apologize. I'm being told that a citizen may have sent a message from home that they would like read here, and so I'm just waiting a second to see if I can get that, because I'd like to give that person the opportunity. I don't see anything in the emails. Does anybody here have an email?
No,
I don't have access to it right now.
Nope.
Maybe,
I don't.
Maybe somebody online has access to is it from the public comment email that they're sending it to?
I'm not sure. Councilor Morris, are you trying to see?
Yeah, sorry, Phil had sent this to me saying that this is something that we should have. The solar committee already did this work for the city for free. I'm not sure to the extent of that. I've not heard anything from our solar committee for quite some while at any of these meetings, so I don't know what that means. I apologize.
Okay. Me neither, but thank you for reading that. I think I don't think anyone else has anything to say, so I will go ahead and move this to a roll call, Patty.
Counsel Morris?
At this point, I'm going to be a no. I just don't think that even in this brief setting, I don't know that I have enough to make a commitment as of this time. I'm not necessarily opposed to it in the future, but like at this point right now, I don't know that I have enough. So I'm going to say no at this point.
Counselor Oliveira?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Just so that I'm clear, I'm voting on whether or not to seek a consultancy here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, but it's tied directly. We're going to be it's linked to an obligation.
Right, if we move forward, we're obligated to purchase the energy, I believe, through, as these people have negotiated, and pay them the fee. Like, that's what we're agreeing to.
Let's see. Yeah.
I would say if counselors feel like they don't have enough information at this point, rather than voting this down, we could table it till the next meeting and people could gather more information, rather than putting an end to this.
Counselor Green?
Is that a motion? Or?
I would be in favor of postponing, since we didn't have a lot of time to look at the contract, and it is clearly has some complexity to it. I'm just concerned about the timeline regarding that Mike mentioned, that this is a time-sensitive issue. So I wonder if he could speak to that.
I think the idea of postponing for 2 weeks makes sense, where you just got the agreement this afternoon when I sent it to all of you. So I take responsibility for that. I should have put it in the agenda. And it's a complicated subject area, and you can see now why we needed help on the city side to understand the whole net energy billing credit. So I certainly don't have any problem with taking 2 weeks for us to continue discussing this, and when we get back December 1, maybe we'll just feel a lot better about being informed on it.
So is there a motion to table it?
Motion to table it.
There it is.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay.
All right, could I get a roll call on the motion to table till the next meeting?
December 1st, I believe. Yeah. Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Foss?
No.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
All right, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Moving on, we're at Resolution 261, 2020.
A resolution providing for authorizing issuance of a marijuana registered caregiver license to caregiver number 5.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Foss?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Resolution 262, 2020.
A resolution providing for authorizing issuance of a marijuana retail license to Hive Medicinal.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yeah.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Foss?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Resolution 263, 2020.
A resolution providing for issuance of a victualer's license to Drip City LLC, doing business as Drip City Barcade.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We need to amend this to reference it as Drip City Arcade Bar.
I'll make that motion.
Moved. Seconded.
Roll call.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Olivera,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Move is adopted.
Amended. Second.
Yep.
Amended, sorry.
Is there any discussion?
All set.
Roll call, please. Yeah.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Olivera,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yep.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Resolution 265, 2020.
It's actually
Oh, 264.
A resolution providing for issuance of a liquor license to Drip City LLC doing business as Drip City Barcade.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And I need the similar amendment to this one.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Olivera,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Move is amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Counselor Klepak.
Can I just ask where this place is gonna be? Where is this?
It's at the former Joseph's Fireside out on West River Road.
Uh-huh. Right.
So, and just to be clear, I assume it's a bar and an arcade?
That's the plan, I believe, yep.
All right. Great. Any other questions or comments?
Okay.
All right, roll call.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Olivera,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yeah.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Last up is Resolution 265, 2020.
A resolution providing for issuance of a victualer's license to St. Mark's Episcopal Church.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Olivera,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Before we get to, actually, I'll save it for community notes. I've got a, I do have an email here on the public comment line, but I'll save that for community notes. Are there any counselor updates? Counselor Foss.
Couple of things I want to talk about tonight. Mike, we'll start out with Mike Roy. Last meeting, we were talking about Casella's vehicles and their excise tax tracking. How do you plan on doing that? What apparatus are we going to put in place to know how much of those excise tax dollars are coming into the city?
I want to make sure I understand. You're talking about the excise taxes from new vehicles associated with the Casella project?
Yes, sir.
Well, we don't have them excised now.
No,
so
I understand that. I'm looking down the road. How do you see that tracking happen?
how do we track those excise taxes?
Yeah.
Pretty easily, really. I mean, we know the vehicles. They're excised about the same time every year. So for us to total those amounts for all the vehicles they have, they may add some years, they may deduct some, but that total is very easily followed, tracked by us. Yep, I don't worry
So
about.
you're gonna have a manual process that once a year or biannually you'll go in and pull some sort of report.
Well, in order to make that host fee agreement work, we're going to have a well thought out way to calculate, or not calculate necessarily, but keep track of all those vehicle excise fees, and we can do that. The other piece is the property tax revenue, which of course that's pretty easy because that's the value of that new building and the associated tax. Since the tax collector is here, I'll ask her that excise question too if she wants to add anything to it. You know, the question, Linda, is that Casella, when they build a building on the airport road, it's going to be their main maintenance garage. So all the vehicles they currently have in Fairfield, they're going to be excising in Waterville. And I think with large trucks like that, they're always excised in May. Is that correct? Or it used to be that? But I'll let you explain it from there.
Well, we have quite a few different fleet vehicles, places, UPS and whatnot is in February.
I'm sorry, Linda, I'm sorry. Can you speak into the microphone and make sure it's on?
It's got to be flipped up.
It is.
Okay.
She's
All right.
on.
We have multiple places who have what we call fleet vehicles. UPS is in February, Springfield Railroad and whatnot. So I would anticipate this would be a once a month, but it's whatever month they pick. They can choose what month they want and we will bill them for the whole year. And
Okay.
a vehicle, if it sleeps in Waterville, pays excise in Waterville.
Do you run that report on a name or an address?
Name.
Okay, good enough. All right, thank you. Appreciate it, Linda. Couple other things on my list. Patty, I have a question, a couple of questions for you. We've been, you and I have talked extensively about ballot requests leading up to the election. Can you explain to me how a ballot request comes to you and what information needs to be on that ballot request to make it legitimate or legal, whatever the word you want to use, so that you can push it to the next step? And if it's not, what steps are you allowed to do? And then we'll go from there.
So you're talking about absentee ballot requests?
Yes.
There's a standardized form that the state provides. People can request absentee ballots using that form. People can call in on the phone. They can do it through an electronic system that the state has. They can send in a written request. The form requires the voter's name, their residence address, their date of birth, some contact information for them, and where they want the ballot mailed.
Okay. On that address list, what is proper address for a given resident of the city?
Well, their residence address is what their residence address is. I think I know where you're going with this. If it's not a complete address, as far as, I think you're talking about Colby College students.
Actually, quite a few places, but we'll start there.
Okay. So with Colby College students in particular, they have either a 4000 Mayflower Hill address with a dorm and a room number, or they have 150 Main Street with a room number. Some had 9 Main Street now, the Lockwood Hotel. So they provide their residence address. If the residence address matches what we have in the system as far as being registered to vote, we accept the request. If they're not registered, we reject the request and we let them know that we're rejecting the request. With in particular the Colby students, if they listed a 4000 Mayflower Hill address, but they failed to put in the dorm name, I inquired with the Secretary of State's office to see how I should handle that. And they indicated that 4000 Mayflower Hill was sufficient to determine which ward and district they were in. 4000 Mayflower Hill, the entire campus on the hill, is located in Ward 3, District 110. The 150 Main Street downtown is located in Ward 6, District 109. So when I inquired how to handle those requests with the state, they indicated that as long as I can be assured that they're receiving the correct ward and district ballot, that I could process them.
Okay, so you're allowed by Secretary of State to mark on their ballot request their correct room according to the CVR that was last posted. Is that it? Am I saying that right?
Not necessarily. I make notes on the applications myself. I'm not directed by anybody to do that. But once I look them up in CVR, just to keep my memory fresh, I make note of what's in CVR.
Right, because this guy, I assume this came up because a couple of years ago, we went through that whole thing. We were told that the P.O. box on campus was invalid and they needed to come in and give an actual physical address.
But we often have voters who request a ballot that don't include the apartment number. You know, we don't reject those requests. It's a similar situation. If they're at 4,000 Mayflower Hill, whether they're in Foss Hall or Shop Hall or whatever, they're still in Ward 6, Ward 3, District 110. So we were told to process them, and we did. I can tell you that we did do a ton of address updates to the students at the college. And when we were processing those address updates, we would check to see if they had requested a ballot. And we actually had a couple that had moved to a different ward and district, and we rejected the first set of ballots and issued the correct set of ballots. So.
And some of the folks that I think had requested that had actually graduated and don't live here anymore, but they were still requesting, those did not get their ballots. Is that accurate?
There were some people that requested ballots to be sent away. We can't scrutinize those, as we don't for anybody who, that's the premise of absentee voting, is that you're away. But it does raise the issue, of course, when they're college students and they're not here. But I think because of the pandemic that we're in, that further complicated things in that people were temporarily away and intending to return once the COVID restrictions were lifted. So again, I reached out to the Secretary of State's office and said, you know, how do I handle this? And they basically said if the voter intends to return, which is, they're implying that by requesting an absentee ballot here in Waterville, that you can process it, So
their intent to return, how do we intend to track that?
we can't track it ongoing every day or every week. Once, you know, requests come up, if they're being mailed away, the problem is that I can't single out a group of people. I can't single out this group of people compared to any other group of people. So I don't scrutinize the other absentee ballot requests that are being sent to Florida or California or anywhere else. I don't ask them, are you coming back? Do you have a lease? Did you sell your house? Whatever. It's similar to the college students. You know, if they're away temporarily, you know, they may not have a dorm room assigned, but if they decide to come back tomorrow, they're going to assign them a dorm room. You know, it's a similar situation. The law allows that if you are temporarily away, that you don't lose your residency to vote. So that's a premise that we've followed through the Secretary of State's guidance. Again, I'm not operating in a vacuum. You know, I reach out to Bill Lee, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General on these matters to make sure that I'm handling them appropriately.
When you do that exchange between us and the Secretary of State's office, do you do that by email or phone or?
Either, whatever, either way.
I guess that's what I've got for right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other counselor updates? Counselor Green.
Yes, I'm not sure if this qualifies as a counselor update, but I got an email from a resident with a concern, basically public comment. So is this a time to read that, to share it with?
Sure, I would put that under community notes.
Okay.
Which I think we're there. I think we're at community notes, counselor. So if you want to go ahead, this looks like a good time. As I look around and nobody's raising their hand.
Make it official.
Okay. Okay. So the email says, hello all, is it possible to offer Zoom attendance to all city business meetings, please? There was a parking committee meeting last week that I intended to participate in, but because of the pandemic worsening, I chose not to attend for the safety of our family. Zoom is a very effective communication tool for doing business in the 21st century, and especially during a pandemic that is worsening by the day here in Maine. I believe this should apply to all city business meetings that we all choose to serve on. We offer Zoom and telephone attendance at the library for our meetings currently. Once we are cleared for in-person, we will continue to offer Zoom as a way to encourage attendance, especially during the winter months. Any chance we can offer this to folks right now, it is a safety issue.
I don't know. I mean, and thank you for reading that. That was actually the one I was thinking about earlier.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's a great idea. It seems to make sense. Seems to make sense since I'm the only one here tonight that we probably not all be here next time. But I don't know. I don't know who would coordinate the specific committees. I think that's the only thing. So I think I don't know if it would have to go, Patty, through the city account, how that is to start up. I don't think Patty can handle us, all these committees, setting them all up. So I think it's a great idea. I appreciate it. I think we just have to think about who gets charged with the responsibility when it comes to and maybe we give that access to committee chairs to be able to use that Zoom account to set it up and send out the invites to their committees. Like maybe that ends up being the way to do it. And I don't know if that's going to take council approval or something that can just be done with Mike's approval.
Well, I think we actually have a couple of Zoom accounts for the city. And, you know, there are certain staff members assigned to certain committees. Like, for example, the planning board has Ann Beveridge.
Right.
The parking committee, I don't know that there are city staff, Sarah Bowen maybe. So if there are city staff assigned to those various committees, then it would be easy enough to coordinate sharing those Zoom protocols so that they could do that. It's a little bit of a learning curve, you know, obviously, and not everyone is as comfortable maybe as Sarah Cross is. But we could certainly give it a try and try to make it happen.
Okay.
I can't guarantee it, but I can say we can certainly try.
How much is it for the city to sponsor a number of other accounts?
I'm unclear of the cost associated with the Zoom account. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the number of accounts, it's the staff that are available to be able to facilitate it.
Right. I think my comment was, could, you know, potentially the chair of each committee be charged with setting up that meeting invite and getting those invites out to their committee? Maybe
I think that's doable as long as they're not scheduled at the same time, obviously, because it's one account.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think there's a way to do it. I think we just have to think about. Go ahead, Thomas.
They don't have. That doesn't actually matter. You can set up different meetings through the same account at the same time. They're going to have different links. I know that because I've had multiple meetings at the same time with the single Zoom account that I have. It's really not that difficult. You can run it all through one account if you don't mind that access to that account being shared. But I think it is a little bit easier to have individual accounts for people. Any one account you can have multiple meetings running at the same time.
Okay.
So they have individual URLs for each of them.
Okay. Well, we can certainly talk with the IT staff to see what that requires to have multiple accounts and what the cost may be.
I think it's just one account. I think what Thomas is saying, he believes that one account can take care of all of this, all of the above.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of security, whether that's how you want to run it or not.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly look into it.
All right. That's great. I have a couple things. One is I've had some comments. There's been some happenings downtown with a couple of bars, and I guess I'm just not sure how the council or the city want to handle this, and I wish the chief was still here. But I want to put this out there because I only have a couple meetings left, but I'm guessing this is going to be an issue that you guys are going to probably have to think about as you move forward, especially during this time. I've had some complaints about a couple of places downtown that have restaurant licenses but are acting as a bar, and those are two separate licenses. And the concern is that by acting as a bar, they're staying open late. There's, you know, and they're acting in a manner that is not in accordance with those restaurants that are following the current prescribed set of rules. I'm not here to be the enforcer necessarily, but I do feel an obligation to bring this up, since it was brought up to me, as just something for you guys to think about in looking at how these licenses, because we've had some serious behavioral issues clearly downtown with a couple of these bars, and people getting into kind of mayhem and trouble down there. And we just want to make sure, I think that, you know, if someone's operating as a bar, they're licensed as a bar. If someone operates as a restaurant, they're licensed as a restaurant.
Right.
So I think that.
I would just kind of chime in on that if you don't mind.
Sure.
That, I mean, if there are issues with certain facilities, I kind of need to be made aware of that. We generally review them with the chief of police, and he kind of takes a look, and if there's not a lot of calls or whatever, then he gives his approval. So it was a little bit surprising to me that this came up kind of recently, where there have been no issues raised during the license renewal processes, where that
Right.
should be raised, because that's when we have some control over those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly if the license type, I mean, I don't generally scrutinize the type of license that they're applying for.
Yeah.
If they're applying for, a Class A lounge or a restaurant or whatever, I don't really scrutinize those, because I'm assuming that they know what they need and
Yeah.
they're going to apply for it. But if they've changed their criteria where they no longer fall into this category and they really should be considered a different category, then that's something that we should be looking at as well.
Okay. And I want to be clear, Patty, I was not trying to insinuate that this was your responsibility in any way.
We do manage the licenses and we facilitate the process, so I'm happy to, take a look at those things,
Yeah.
but the issues have to be raised and brought to our attention, otherwise we're
Right.
operating in a kind of a routine.
Sure. Well, and that's why it was brought
manner.
up to me. That's why I want to bring it up tonight, 'cause I am trying to figure out the right avenue for that. And I see Councilor Thomas with his hand raised.
I was approached about these issues as well. I actually know both of the business owners, one better than the other. So I made a phone call, and when I talked to the other one was there listening on the speakerphone. I made it clear to them that as long as they're following the concerns were really, of course, had to do with COVID and exactly how they're operating their establishment under the current state guidelines. I made it clear to them, as long as they're following the state guidelines, they're not going to have any issues. The one gentleman certainly assured me that he is following the guidelines. The other gentleman did not speak up on the speakerphone. I assume if I asked him, he would tell me he is. This is an issue that I have brought up to the city manager and the chief before, that I don't want us being the police of every mandate COVID, but at the same time, we do have a responsibility to the community to make sure people are adhering as best as possible to the spirit of the guidelines handed down by the state.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to be the COVID police either, obviously. I guess I understood it a little differently, so thank you for clarifying that. Patty, I'm going to read an email I got through the public comment. This is not my comment. This is a comment from a Mark Andre. It says, what physical, I assume this is related to voting. It says, what physical address do they intend to return to, and do they currently have a right to occupy that residential address?
And that's not something that we can determine at any time with any voter.
I think so.
We never know if someone is wintering in Florida to what address they're going to come back to in the spring. Their house could be for sale. It could. We don't know. I don't
We
grill.
lost Patty's mic.
I don't grill every voter on where they're returning. So I can't speak to that. I mean, I can't look into a crystal ball and say where people are going to return. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anybody here? Is there anybody from the public for community notes? Thomas, did you have something you wanted to say? Councilor Klebeck, sorry.
I'm looking for the email that Anna sent in. She had a bunch of questions about the hockey rink that seems like they should be read, but I'm having a hard time finding it right now, actually.
Did it come to all of us?
I don't-
No,
And that item's gonna be on the agenda again. So
Oh,
that might
okay.
be a more
yeah,
appropriate time to bring up those concerns.
All right, rep manager's report.
I only have one item, that is to ask if future council meetings could go back to the Zoom format for the foreseeable future.
Since I'm the only one, I can't imagine asking anyone to set all this up for this again.
Thank you.
Thank you for those of you who did. I really appreciate it. And I know everybody, I speak on behalf of the council, everybody appreciates all the work that has gone into these months of doing this. So, seems like that's the thing to do.
I'm sitting here on Zoom.
I just assumed we were all going to be here. I didn't know.
I planned on it. Patty told me not to come.
Jeez, I thought I'd be the first one they would have said that to. Mark, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Thanks.